Welcome to the Support Raising Podcast, a ministry of VIA. We're excited to bring to you the best leaders and practitioners in these three areas: spiritually healthy, vision-driven, and fully funded. We hope their insight will help you to move forward in your partnership development. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing a previous guest, but our current guest today is Charles Wesley. He serves with the University Christian Outreach, a campus ministry serving 6 college campuses in the U.S. He's been on staff since 2013 and currently serves as their MPD director. Today, Charles and I are going to talk a little bit about the different approaches people might have to partnership. And so we kind of titled this Crowdsourcing versus Partnership. And we know that often when people start support raising, they have ideas and thoughts about how they're going to raise support. And they often think, I mean, in my experience, and you can tell me, but when I was an MPD director, people often had a new way they were going to do it that was going to change everything. And we're not against new ideas, but we hope to discuss how you might be able to use those and then what we know to be best practices. So thanks for coming, Charles. Really appreciate your time and your energy here and the wealth of experience you bring. Yeah, Charles, do you have any fun stories? I thought you might have some, since you work with college students who are coming out and they come right from, it is my understanding is correct, they come right from school and they join UCO. But do you have any fun stories of some things that people have suggested in ways they might have thought they could raise their support?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fun ideas. In my experience, 99% of the staff I work with are coming straight out of college, and so oftentimes what I face is people wanting to know. They have no idea how to do this, and they actually don't have really any ideas. More often than not, they may say, "Oh, I sent a letter to send me to this conference or to a short-term missions." But I think even inherently they know that's not quite what we're after. So I think it's actually a blessing in that I'm kind of dealing with a lump of clay with no presuppositions.
Yeah.
But I do have a story as I was thinking about this, about a crowdsourcing way. I think a lot of our listeners might be familiar with a radio station called K-Love, Christian radio station. Right. I'm in the DC area. We have WGTS 91.9, and both of these crowdsource to fund their ministries, and they're great ministries. But I was thinking about crowdsourcing. I thought those were great examples of a different methodology of partnership. I don't even know if I would call it partnership, but they do 3 or 4 fundraisers a year looking to raise over $100,000, probably multiple hundred thousands of dollars. And the way they go about it is for about a week, 24/7, they're asking people to give. They're asking people to give, at least in the local station here in DC, $45 a month is their average, or 251 time is their average. And it's interesting to hear that that's how they go about it, and they're somewhat successful, but that's certainly a different methodology and crowdsourcing compared to what we have found to be successful in terms of sustainable, long-term, biblically based idea of ministry partner development.
Yeah. I often change radio stations that week. Isn't that terrible?
You and me both.
But I was just thinking, I when I was an MPD director, I mean, I had people ask, was there other ways? Can I do, a GoFundMe page? I had a guy who went to Starbucks and left business cards on all the table, like things like that. They're like, there are ideas out there. And again, we're not against, creativity in building your list and all those kind of things. But I think you pointed out sustainable partnerships is what we're about. And is there anything you want to talk to us that you notice the difference? Like, would you like to explore that a little bit? Just what you see the value in sustainable partnerships versus more of a transactional kind of thing, like
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is one of my, I have many soapboxes in MPD, but this is one that in my role, I talk about
Mhm.
almost every year with every level of our staff. And it's this idea of donors versus partners. And I think these radio stations, and I'm not banging them or bashing them. They're great
Mhm.
ministries, but it's a different approach, and they talk about donors and donating. And to me, I have found that the word donor kind of implies a one-way transactional kind of relationship. We have a need, donate to that need, and that's not necessarily wrong, but I think the heart of ministry partner development is casting vision
Mhm.
to partnership, casting vision to the advancement of the gospel in the various specific ministries that that are out there. And partnership implies this relationship that each party needs one another.
Yeah.
If one partner isn't involved, invested, then the goal is not accomplished. And I think that's the heart of ministry partner development, is or I like to call it, and I think it's maybe mentioned on the podcast here before, it's the ministry of
Mhm.
partner
Mhm.
development, which again kind of cements this idea of this is not something that we do uh, to to get to the ministry. Like K-Love and 91.9, they need donors
Yeah.
so that their ministry can continue. And that is true, but we want to kind of try to avoid that, to say we actually want to partner with people. That I need you and you need me for this vision that we have to go forth, for to partner with God in his vision of the kingdom of heaven here on earth. And so I like that idea of like individual
Mhm.
partnership and relying on the relationship,
Yeah.
as opposed to a kind of cast the net wide. And I'm not saying we don't cast the net wide, but that individual one-on-one invitation to partnership,
Mhm.
and even using that language as opposed to
Yeah.
donors. Like, Mark, I don't have a team of donors.
Yeah.
I have a team of partners that mobilize me into the mission.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you stated that so well, Charles. I mean, it's really crucial. And it's a mindset that has to change. Um, yeah, I mean, we could be done right there. That was great. I'd love to explore a little bit. I mean, as you stated that, um, in people's minds, before they understand the partnership side, like why do they try some of these other options? Like, what do you think drives them to make that happen? And again, we're trying to point out and help people move to a new perspective. So we kind of want to unveil maybe some of the underlying motivations that we're probably not even aware of are driving us.
Yeah, and there's probably a lot out there that you and I aren't aware
Mhm.
of, and will become aware of as we continue in this ministry. But I think oftentimes what happens is people are so excited about getting into the field,
Mhm.
about doing the ministry. And so they're excited about that, and that's not wrong at all.
Mhm.
That's fantastic. That's the kind of missionaries we want. Like, we want missionaries
Yeah.
who are zealous to get into the field and actually work with the people and spread the gospel. And so there's kind of a paradigm shift to say, uh, well, and people want to skip the hard work. Like, I just want to
Mhm.
get into the meat of it, right? And so how can I shortcut my way there? Or
Mhm.
what's the easiest approach? Not because this is a bad thing, but because there's such good at the end of it.
Yeah.
And I think there's so it also could be, oh, it's not as scary or daunting, it's going to take less work, I'm going straight into the mission. So that kind of perspective, I think, leads to these creative solutions
Mhm.
that we know not to work that well, at least not for long-term sustainable mission. And so it's a paradigm shift, I believe, to say, like I mentioned earlier, uh, MPD, ministry partner development, is not something we have to do to get to our ministry, to get to the mission field. The ministry of partner development is part of the ministry of University Christian Outreach, of Via Generosity, of, place your ministry organization name here. It's part and parcel. It's integral to the mission, because without it, your objectives, your goals, your action plan actually doesn't happen. And again, it's that partnership idea. And so if and this is a shift that I had to take on, right? Like, okay, this is actually, if I don't invite partners to mobilize me into my mission with UCO, then actually the mission of UCO does not advance. And so I need the partners. And if this is an integral piece of the ministry, then it is worth investing in. It's not, it would be a mistake to find shortcuts within the process and within what we would say are principles of ministry partner development.
Yeah. You said that so well. You said it in such a nice, positive way, in terms of that people's motivation is to get to the ministry. And so they want a hack, right? I mean, that's what we all want we want a shortcut. We want an easy button. And I think there's a reality that relationship and partnership takes work and time. And it's almost unavoidable. It's like trying to be fit without doing exercise, maybe is a good analogy, right? You can't be fit unless you actually put the work in. And so this is really important. So I thought you did a really nice job explaining that. And I do think people, in my experience, their hearts are well-intentioned in this and don't know the perspective. As we talk about that a little bit, what changed your perspective? Like what was key in you understanding or moving towards partnership versus donors? Like what contributed to that thought shift?
Yeah, I think certainly some integral components of training, attending a Via Generosity boot camp, reading the God Ask, was certainly part of kind of the launching pad of beginning to grasp the paradigm, or what I call the partnership paradigm. That's the language I use in the trainings that I run within UCO, and those things were the beginnings of me understanding and changing my own paradigm of from donor to partner, and investing in the hard work of the ministry of partner development. But I also think ongoing learning, attending things like the Support Raising Leaders Conference that Via Generosity puts on, networking with other ministries and missionaries, and learning their perspectives and sometimes their pitfalls, and saying, okay, there's something missing. And oftentimes it's the heart. And part of that was just being in it, right? Like continuing to raise a team of partners for my ministry, training in it for myself with UCO, and trying to learn best practices, and starting to realize that this is predominantly, there's a heart thing here of wanting partnership. I don't want just a team of donors. I want relationships with these people who are mobilizing me into the ministry. And I think partnered with that as well would be realizing my call from the Lord to be a long-term career missionary, and saying like, okay, if this is a call from the Lord for me, or even for a listener who's saying, I'm discerning whether this is a call from the Lord for me, if he calls me into it, I want to make sure that this is something sustainable and achievable. And I think for me, that changed my heart. I would say, okay, now I need to dig into this a little more and say, what is the core here, and what does God have to say about sustainable career missionary? What are the biblical principles at stake that are stated? How can I engage this in a way that values relationship and not just money? And I think that was a big key for me, was realizing, okay, MPD is not about the money. It's really about what God has called me to do, which is invite people to partner with me in my role of specifically what UCO is doing in the Great Commission, in spreading the gospel. And once I started to understand that is when I really kind of it was a game changer for me, and where my passion for MPD kind of came out.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that phrase, that it's not about the money. And it is for so many people, when they start, without that perspective, they do think it's about the money. I need X to get to Y, right? I mean, and so they are trying to get money, but it changes. I have two questions. I mean, one, we'll start with this one, but it's a partnership for us because we're going to a campus or to another country, and we're doing ministry, we're sharing the gospel, we're discipling. What does the partnership look like from the other side? Like, what's the benefit from, like, how are they partnering? What does it look like for them, and why is it needed?
Yeah, I think it's the difference between need based and vision
Okay.
based. It, when we sit down with someone, and hopefully what we're doing is casting a vision for hey, there's a problem or a need out there, and here's how my organization and my role within that solves that. And we're casting a vision to the partner, to this potential partner, this person, about that they are a part of that solution in a way that they otherwise couldn't.
Hmm.
Saying I like to say something along the lines of like, I have the time and the training and the resources to be mobilized onto college campuses and preach the gospel to college students, the future of our country. You don't have the training or the time or the resources because you are an economist or an accountant or something like that. But by our powers combined, if you will, but I don't have the financial resources to actually do that, but you do. And so if we combine our resources, our talents together, then you are going to be able to accomplish something that you otherwise couldn't. And hopefully you're marrying the vision with what they see as a need or problem in the particular mission field that we're called to.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, there's so much in there. I wanted to add a little bit on it, just thinking that sometimes they, like Ellis Goldstein says, sometimes people have a greater need to give than you need the money, and it is for their involvement in the kingdom. Like, they literally get to be working through and with you, and they care about what you care about now. They care about what God cares about. They doesn't exempt them from doing ministry where they live, and volunteering and doing, but they're now participating in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the ends of the earth in ways that they might not have been before. And they're praying and they're seeking the heart of God. They're seeking his name being great and lifted up in those places. And so they do, and the treasure principle, the book, I've forgotten the name of the author, but he just talked like there is an investment that is made on their behalf. I mean, in the kingdom, and it does benefit them. The other thing I thought was interesting, Charles, and maybe you can talk about this, but God made it so that we had to be dependent on him and on other people, which is, I find, is a really fascinating. Do you have any thoughts like that you would want to expand on? Like, he made it that we had to partner. Like,
it's an interesting concept. I think about this every once in a while. I love the idea of bringing back, because our God is sovereign, all powerful, all knowing. He could have been like, I don't need the finite creatures that I've made to accomplish my mission. I can do it by myself. But he ordained it that he's going to use us, and that's a gift to us. And so there's this concept of we're not independent, but we're interdependent. And it's kind of like, if we take that principle and apply it to ministry, why wouldn't the accomplishment of the ministry objectives of mission be interdependent, even beyond the staff or scope of actual missionaries or employees of a ministry organization. There's something that mirrors the kingdom. There's something that mirrors the heart of the Lord. You look Jesus's ministry, right? Like he didn't do that by himself. He recruited a team of 12 people that helped him, and then beyond that, 12, 72, and then a team of people who supported the financial resources so that he can be a full-time ministry. So it's just it's really just a mirror image of the kingdom, of discipleship. And I think that's pretty cool to think of that concept of like, actually, this is very much in line, this idea of interdependency, of partnership, of reaching beyond ourselves for the accomplishment of a greater mission or a greater goal. It's very much in line with Jesus, with the Bible, with God's plan for salvation.
Yep. Yeah. And it does teach us again to keep dependence. I mean, it puts us in a humble posture where we're trusting the Lord. It's not by our own merit or by our own strength or our persuasiveness or our charisma. It is the Lord that has to work in other people and through us. And I like that idea of us working together. And I mean, the unity of the body is such an important part. And one of the downsides of, like, Protestant has some good sides, but one of the downsides of Protestantism is that we fragmented everything, right? Like we can spin off, and I love it where we work together. I love where we can collaborate, and it's supposed to be a mark, unity and love of what we do. And I like the way it works.
Yeah, absolutely. There is something of, we live in a fallen world where the evil one sows division. And here we have a practical way where God's people, the body of Christ, can be united, and not just united for a cause or like for the elimination of cancer or something like that, or humanitarian aid, which is all good things, but for Great Commission work, for the most important thing that there is, which is the gospel and preaching love in Jesus, and uniting behind that in this tangible way, I think just speaks volumes to discipleship, to Christianity. And it does so in a way that I think crowdsourcing doesn't, because you're investing in relationships, and as we talk about some of the principles of developing, maintaining those relationships and ensuring that the people who are partnered with us actually feel as if they are a part of the ministry, and giving a window through our newsletters and engaging them practically in our ministries, then that's a lot better than just someone giving to a cause, giving to a radio station, being on air, which is great. But through what we teach in the boot camp, what I teach in UCO, we want them to be more than just pay and pray. We want them to see and know that they are an integral part of the actual day-to-day activities of our ministries, the day-to-day advancement of the kingdom of heaven, and MPD, and not just like raising support, but that partnership paradigm, and actually helping them see their partnership kind of really gets at that.
Yeah. And it's, as you were talking, I was thinking, in Romans, it says, how can they go if they haven't been sent? I mean, it implies that there's a group that is behind the mission, and is sending somebody out, and they're partnering in it. And I liked the thought that you had too of, it's part of their discipleship. It's part of their becoming more like Christ and obeying the will of the Father and knowing more deeply how he's impacting the world. And I find that, when I talk to people, they're often unaware of what God is doing in missions. And I think that's super sad. Like, because if I ask them, well, what's your perception of how the Great Commission is going? They often will say, well, I don't know that we're doing very well. And I'm like, guys, you have to hear, like, it's going great. Like, doesn't mean there aren't challenges, but like, there, like there are only 3.1 billion people in the world who don't have a gospel witness. That means there's 4 billion that do. And I said that's good news, and I think it encourages their faith when they hear and they're like,
Absolutely.
oh wow. It also gets them outside of the context they live in a little. So you're right, there are some really good growth things that happen there. Well, Charles, anything else that you'd like to add or to to kind of sum up what or final thoughts that you might have for this conversation?
Yeah, I think going back to MPD, ministry partner development, is not about the money. I think that concept, especially for someone who is just starting out in this, or maybe has had uh, an incorrect paradigm of MPD, would be a hard thing to understand and grasp. And I think one thing that I find is that uh, the being fully funded, being mobilized full time into the mission field is a byproduct. The money is a fruit. It's a byproduct. It's not the goal or the objective. And I think that's an important thing to understand, because if you were able to grasp that this MPD is about faithfulness to God's call, and all we're being called to do is to be God's hands, feet, and mouth, and inviting people to partner in a specific way of spreading the gospel, whatever that looks like for our ministries. And a byproduct, a fruit, a secondary effect of that is full funding, is the salary, however you want to phrase it, and getting into our mission field. So if we're able to say, okay, I'm going to invest and focus on the mobilization piece, focus on the invitation piece, then what follows is what a lot of people beginning in MPD start with, it's the money. And I think one really tangible thing that really sparked a change in my paradigm was a couple years ago at the Support Raising Leaders Conference. Steve Shadrach wrote this little vignette at the beginning of the program. And I just want to quote him here, because I think it really helped me understand this concept and this paradigm. And he said, the ministry of personal support raising is not just about money to fund the ministry, but rather about mobilization, the mobilization opportunity of a lifetime. And again, I think that mirrors Jesus's ministry. It mirrors the heart of the gospel. It mirrors the Great Commission. And if we're able to grasp that, then I think we become willing to do the hard work of the ministry of partner development, to sit down with individuals and invite them to partner with us in Great Commission work and mobilizing us into the field.
Yep. Solid. That's really solid, Charles. Great stuff. Thank you. Thank you for your investment in the listeners. Thank you for the work you do at UCO and the partnership you have with Via Generosity. Thank you guys for listening today. And we hope as you process your own support raising and your partnership, that you can see that partnership development is your first and ongoing ministry. It doesn't stop, and that it is an invitation to walk a lifetime with these folks and helping them see and participate in the kingdom. So thanks for listening. We value your time and energy, and we'll see you next time.